Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Pijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Shiman Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to Shishi Guru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 69, Narada visits Lord Krishna's palaces in Dwarka, text number 43. Ityartha kama dharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana Samyak sabhajita pritas tam eva nusmaram jajau Ityartha kama dharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana samyak sabhajita pritas tam eva nushmaram jajau ityarthakaram ityarthakamadharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana samyak sabhajita pritas tam eva nushmaram jajau. Christian. Ityartha kamadharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana samyak sabhajita pritas tam eva nusmaran jajau. Ityartha kamadharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana samyak sabhajita pritas tam eva nusmaram jajau. Ityartha kamadharmeshu Krishnena sraditatmana samyak sabhajita pritas tamavasnusmaram jajau. Iti, thus, artha, with items of utility for economic development, kama, of sense gratification, dharmeshu, and of religiosity, Krishnena, by Lord Krishna, sradhita, faithful, atmana, whose heart, samyak, thoroughly, sabhajitaha, honor, pritaha, please, tam, him, eva, indeed, anusmaram, always remembering, yayao, he went. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Krishna greatly honored Narada, faithfully presenting him with gifts related to economic prosperity, sense gratification, and religious duties. Thus, fully satisfied, the sage departed, constantly remembering the Lord. Purport. As Srila Prabhupada points out, in Krishna, the phrase Artha Kama Dharmeshu indicates that Lord Krishna was behaving like an ordinary householder deeply concerned with economic development, sense gratification, and religious duties. Narada could understand the Lord's purposes, and he was most pleased by Sri Krishna's exemplary behavior. Thus, fully enlivened in his pure Krishna consciousness, he departed. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Prabhupada Swami Niti Namine. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So the whole pastime um, highlights Krishna giving a perfect example for householders. In his position as king, he was performing a perfect example for society. As a leader of society, he was giving that perfect example. But even more than that, he's not only giving a perfect example for those who are um, being under your rule or being um, part of your responsibility. But Krishna explains to Narada that because he is the giver of the principles of religion for the whole cosmic manifestation, then he have to give a perfect example of those principles of religion. And the whole thing came to a halt because it was quite bewildering. Bewildered enough that it's not just Krishna performing human like activities. Here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's doing ordinary things. That in itself is very bewildering. But the thing that was most bewildering to Narada, that actually really disturbed him, we covered that in the previous verses, is that specifically when Krishna was worshiping him. And the thing that was the most uh, disturbing and unsettling for Narada was that Krishna was washing his feet and then drinking the water from uh, that was used for what, for cleaning the feet of Narada Muni. So for Narada, that was like, it was too much to bear. It was really, really disturbing. So he was mortified. He was totally mortified. That, okay, is so wonderful to observe, but that action was just beyond what he could actually be able to not only comprehend but to experience. Jai Shri Kishore Kishore. So he was very worried that he have committed this most grievous offense to allow that situation. And Krishna explained to pacify him. He gave an explanation that he have to do that because is him showing the example, a perfect example of how a householder must act. And then even after explaining that, it is described that still Narada was still disturbed. And Krishna pacified him by actually bring to Narada to his attention the relationship of loving, the loving relationship that is between the two of them, and the affection that Krishna feels for him. So Krishna addressed Narada as my son. Like the affection of a father towards his child, that Krishna explains that just as a child sitting in the lap of a father is kicking him and touching him with his feet, there is no offense because of the nature of the relationship. So Narada was pacified by the Lord, very, very kind and loving attention. Jai Shri Kishore Kishore. So Krishna explains that because he is the provider of the principles of religion, he is the one who gives the principles of religion, then he have to act and show how to follow the principles of religion. So the principles of religion are this dharma, these principles of dharma in the universe are something that must be followed. It's the laws of the universe for human beings. If one, either by ignorance or by neglect, do not follow the principles of religion, then one is breaking universal laws and therefore have to be punished. It's a simple principle of organization and structure, law and order. To maintain order in the universe, then there is required to follow the laws. There have to be laws. And those laws are the principles of dharma or religion. Lord Krishna provides those. Dharmas tu Bhagavan Pranitam. That the Supreme Lord provides the principles of religions to be followed by human beings. So, those principles of religion are the people in the universe, mankind that follows the principles of religions, they call sukritinas. Sukritinas. Pious. Those who follow these principles. The ones who don't follow the principle, either by neglect or by choice, either by choice or by ignorance, they call duskritinas. The activities performed by those who are sukritinas are called karma. The activities performed by those who are duskritinas is called vikarma. Vikarma means sinful or irreligious activities. Those who follow the principles of the Vedas or the principles of dharma, they can be karma, they can perform karma, or they can also perform akarma, activities that are free from the react or the benefits, the material benefits of performing religious activities. So Krishna is giving an example of how a householder, And why the householder? Well, because the great majority of people in the world are to be going to the full process of being passing to the Grihastha ashram. This is called the whole system of religion that Krishna has provided for the world is called Varnashram Dharma. So people have to go through these four Varnas. Oh, people have to be classified according to these Varnas, but they also have to go through the different ashrams, the four different ashrams in general. That's what most people have to go through. Especially at the heart of this process that is designed to take conditioned souls from very much absorbed and influenced by the most material natures and elevate yourself to the position of Krishna consciousness. At the heart of this process, and possibly the most in which so much focus is given in the Vedas, is specifically designed for people who are householders. Therefore, the great majority of the Vedas are focused on these karma kanda principles, of how to be able to perform your activities in such a way that elevates your consciousness. Perform your activities within this world. So a lot is focused on this karma kanda, and within the four ashram, the one that have to do with materialistic activities is the grihastha ashram. So the example that Krishna is giving right now is the perfect example of a grihastha. So in this verse particularly is how to honor a representative of God, of Krishna. How to honor a saintly person, a sadhu, a pure devotee. So for the grihastha, then who have full faith in these principles of dharma, then he should offer gift, or he should give to the saintly person gifts that are related to economic prosperity, that is artha, sense gratification, that is kama, and religious duties, that is dharma. So all these activities are part of these purposes that are there in religious life for grihastas, which is, or the goals of um, religious life is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These four. So all these things should be offered to the saintly person. Why to the saintly person, or the Krishna, or the representative of the personality of Godhead? Because the saintly person would take these gifts and offer to the Lord, or they accept this gift as offers to be offered to the Lord. And the consciousness is like that. It's a principle that is described, meaning right here, we just hear in the narrations of Narada observing the Lord performing all these activities. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna breaks down that throughout the Bhagavad Gita very, very, very nicely and clearly. That's why the Bhagavad Gita, part of the Bhagavad Gita, especially in the first part of the Bhagavad Gita, the first sixth chapter, what is called the Yoga Ladder is explained. It's one of the subjects of the first six chapters. There's a whole spectrum that is there from those who are followers of the Vedas, they call karmis, all the way to the pure devotion, pure devotees, who are, called what is this? Ananya Bhakti, or pure devotional service. So there's a whole spectrum that is there. So we have karma, and then we have karma yoga, and karma yoga can be of different. There's different levels of karma yoga. One is called sakama karma yoga, and one is called nishkama karma yoga. Then over karma yoga, there's jnana yoga, and over jnana yoga, there's there's yoga. there's the yogis, and over the best of all yogis is bhakti. So on the top of the ladder is bhakti, and among bhakti there's also divisions. There's those who have mishra bhakti, and there's those who have pure bhakti or ananya bhakti. So that whole spectrum is breakdown in the Bhagavad Gita through different chapters. So in the middle chapters, Krishna explains very clearly, especially in the ninth chapter, these different levels of bhakti, and both this Mishra Bhakti and pure Bhakti. And then through those middle chapters, from 9 to 12, from 7 to 12, then this is described quite clear. It's very fantastic. The breakdown is very, very clear. So now Krishna here is giving an example. An example that he's giving is the highest example. It's example that is such a complete example that regardless what position of consciousness you are, if you're a pure devotee like Narada, or you are simply a follower of the Vedas, you should be able to follow Krishna's example. You should be able to see Krishna's example and follow it. Now, on the highest level of pure devotional service is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, when all your actions, everything that whatever is there is fully controlled by the internal potency of the Lord. So for the pure devotee, is everything the pure devotee does is simply for the pleasure of Krishna, and nothing else is there. Is devoid of anything, is something that have no motivation, not a motivation Any type of motivation is free from that. Any type of motivation is pure. Jnana, karma, and navritat. That is devoid of jnana, is devoid of karma. It's just pure. So automatically, when the devotee does anything, automatically is for Krishna's pleasure. It's automatically like that. So the devotee may be doing something that have to do with artha, economic, the pure devotee with economic development. Like I'm hearing Mahabharata. And Yudhishthir Maharaj has been instructed to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice by um, Srila Vyasadeva. And immediately he thinks of Krishna. And the way he thinks is, you know, the Rajasuya sacrifice is performed by great powerful kings to establish themselves as the um, the ruler of the whole world. It's usually what how you say the person who rules the whole world. What's the name? Um, um, the emperor of the whole world. And you think about, all the things, all the power, the wealth, all the things that is required for doing that, and to establish yourself in that position of control and conquer. Maharaj Yudhishthir mentality is quite remarkable, quite beautiful, because he's thinking, I perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, and the thing that comes to his mind is how Krishna will be glorified for this. So how Krishna will be glorified. So he's thinking that because during the time of the Rajasuya sacrifice, all the demigods will be present, all the great personalities of the world who should be present. And at that moment, the performer of the Rajasuya sacrifice, have to choose what is the most important person in that assembly. And then when I choose Krishna, it will be clearly established and accepted by everyone by observing all the great personalities and demigods that will be present there, such as Brahma, Shiva, and all great saintly persons, Vyasadeva, Narada, everybody will be there. And when they all worship Krishna, it will be clear to the world that Krishna is supreme. So this is the mentality of an Ananya Bhakta, a pure devotee. Automatically is for Krishna's pleasure, is for Krishna's glory. So you may be performing this great task of economic development, or this great sacrifice, or whatever you do is automatically to glorify Krishna. There's no separation, there's no thing happening there. So that's Ananya Bhakta. And then when it's mixed, then Krishna recommends this thing. He recommends that to Arjuna. When he tells Arjuna in the ninth chapter that he should, um, that, you know, he should, whatever he does, whatever he eats, whatever sacrifice he performs, he should do that as an offering to Krishna. So this particular verse is a verse that explains of someone who have this type of devotion that is still mixed with jnana and karma. It's not pure devotion. It's the famous verse, Jat karosi jat nosi, Jat juhosi dadasi jat, Jat tapasya sekunte jat, tat kuru shwadmad arpanam. That all these activities, whatever you do, this whatever you do is everything. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever. Whatever you do. So all activities, all things that you eat, all things that you give away or offer, austerities, whatever of those things, it should be offered to Krishna. Now, this is described as devotional service that is mixed. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur described it like this. It's very beautiful. He says, O Arjuna, because you cannot reject karma, jnana, and other process in the present state, and are not qualified for supreme bhakti, kevala bhakti, and because you should not degrade yourself to perform the inferiors sakama bhakti. You should perform bhakti, which is a slightly mixture of karma and jnana. Karma, jnana, mishra, pradhani bhuta bhakti, which is nishkama. Nishkama means that you have no desires. So, in other words, why not pure? Why is not pure? Well, Krishna explains, because the activity goes first, you're doing an activity, and then you offer to Krishna. I'm doing something, and then whatever I'm doing, then I'm going to offer to Krishna. So it's not automatic. There is the activity first, and then there's the offering to Krishna. When you do it, when we're talking about Kevala Bhakti or Ananya Bhakti, is there's no this consideration or do whatever action you do, offer to Krishna. It's automatically is for Krishna's pleasure. There's not that type of consideration. So this particular practice is still considered, or is prescribed for most people who have still, like what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur say, because we can still give up our propensity to act in certain way according to our nature, because we can still give up the particular propensities of how to, we understand and process things. We're still influenced by material nature. I still have I have to follow this type of prescription. So the whole idea is that yes, go ahead, act according to how your nature is, but offer it to Krishna. Make sure that the results are offered to Krishna. Therefore, that is called nishkama. Because the result of our work, the result of whatever we do, is an offer to Krishna. The result of what we do, whatever we do, we offer to Krishna. is it falls into this nishkam karma, but nishkam bhakti, or still is without the material desires. Lesser than that is called sakam bhakti. That's the step down. Still consider bhakti, but is if with material desires. You have something that you want for you. And when you perform the activity, you looking to satisfy that. It's just mixed with devotional service. There is a term that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur uses. So, on the top of the ladder is Kevala Bhakti, or Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service. Then, in the other level, which have several steps, is called Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti. Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti means that Bhakti is the most essential part. It's the most essential part of the practice. So you have more than 50% is Bhakti in that mix. It's mixed, but Bhakti is the most dominant element in the mix. So when Bhakti is the most um, predominant element, then that's this consideration, this verse of Yat Koroshi Yat Asnasi, that's when Bhakti is most predominant. And therefore, that activity in itself would lead to pure devotional service. So, that's that level. Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti. Or when Bhakti is is the strongest element in the mix. The third is called Guna Bhuta Bhakti. Guna means modes of nature. When the modes of nature are the most predominant, then then that in itself is more exemplary of those who follow the Vedas. The Veda Vrata followers. Krishna explains those, no? The followers of the Vedas, which he discouraged Arjuna. Why is that? Well, the ones who follow the Vedas, they still there's bhakti, but bhakti is covered by the modes of nature. So why still bhakti and still consider Krishna still consider that sukritinas, their bhakti, and he's still given the example that Krishna is giving in Dwarka in front of Narada also is meant for those people who follow the Vedas. Now, the difference between those of Guna, Bhuta, Bhakti, and Pradhana Bhuta Bhakti, so when Bhakti is predominant or when Guna is predominant, the difference is this, explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. The lower one, the Guna Bhuta Bhakti, they perform the activities, And there's a particular type of prescribed activities that they do for the satisfaction of Vishnu. It's whatever is prescribed in the Vedas that should be offered to Lord Vishnu, they do. So when they perform sacrifices, it is explained in the Vedas that sacrifices must be performed for the satisfaction of Vishnu. All sacrifices, the Yagya Purush or the Yagyartha, the one who receive the offerings of sacrifices is Lord Vishnu. So when they do sacrifices, they offer to Lord Vishnu. So there's bhakti there, but not with whatever they do. The whatever they do doesn't apply to the guna, bhuta, bhakti followers or those who are in that level. So they're actually not considered devotees. They're not considered bhaktas. The term that is used for this type of people that follow the Vedas are karmis or karma, they're practicing karma, jnana, and yoga. These three. It is explained, Srila Vishwa, and that's at the lower level of the yoga ladder. So, for the karmis, when they start to cultivate knowledge, or when they start by it is explained the karmis when they have association with sadhus and they hear, especially when they perform sacrifices, because this is part of the prescribed duties that are in the Vedas, then they hear transcendental messages and they start to, jnana start to enter. And as they get jnana, then go to the next level, which is jnana. And when you start to cultivate jnana, then now the goals change. For those who evolve from karma, and the goals of karma are dharma, artha, and kama, which is sort of what Krishna is offering here to satisfy Narada. The goal of the karmis are religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. As they follow the process of Jagya, then they elevate themselves, they start to gain transcendental knowledge. And with transcendental knowledge, they start to understand that the goal now becomes moksha. So liberation. So both jnanis and yogis are looking for liberation. Now, when you start to introduce bhakti, as bhakti start to evolve there, then Krishna explains that in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that he called, of all these followers of Vedic, the Sukritinas, then 4 of them come to him, Artha, Jigyasa, Arthati, and the Jnani. Artha, Jigyasa, Arthati, Jnana, and the Jnani. So 4. Artha, Jigyasa, Arthati, and the Jnani. So these 3 first ones, Artha, Jigyasa, and Arthati, of these followers of the Vedas, when they come to Krishna, then now it becomes bhakti. When they approach Krishna for the fulfillments of their desires, material desires, of either economic development or sense gratification, then now it becomes bhakti. is considered bhakti and is described as sakama bhakti. Sakama bhakti. Sakama means bhakti with desires. So the artha is a someone who is looking for economic development. You approach Krishna. Jigyasa is someone who wants to understand and gain knowledge. So they approach Krishna. And artharti is someone who is in distress and wants to be alleviated from suffering. He also approaches Krishna. So these three, in general, they are in the category of grihastas, householders. But when they approach Krishna, see, the karmis, the jnanis, and the yogis don't necessarily approach Krishna. They just follow the Vedas. But when they approach Krishna, then they are considered bhaktas. And the fourth one, the jnani, approaches Krishna. And the jnani is someone who is desiring liberation. And you approach Krishna for that. So the first three are sakama bhaktas, and this one right here, the jnani, is jnana bhakta. So they're mixed. So these are the mixed devotees. Now, higher than them is the ones who now, because of the process of bhakti and under the guidance of a spiritual master, sadhus, then now you start to enter into the 9 processes of bhakti and the whole breakdown of how, by association with devotees, then you start the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Then you elevate yourself, and the principle of bhakti start to become more and more prominent. And if it become more and more prominent, then you start to understand, like in the 9th chapter, how to perform whatever you do, how to make it as an offering to Krishna. And as you become further purified, then whatever mix is there of jnana and karma becomes completely eliminated. Completely eliminated until it's just pure devotional service. So this is the example that Narada is seeing here. It's a perfect example of how one should live one's life as a grihasta, and applies, is such a perfect example that is able to guide people in different levels of consciousness. So it's a very wonderful thing. I'm going to stop here. It's something that when you study the Bhagavad Gita, part of the study of the Bhakti Shastri of the Bhagavad Gita, you get into studying this it's a very important part to understand the Bhagavad Gita is how Krishna breaks down this thing called the Yoga Ladder. And so in my limited capacity, I try to explain. Any comments or questions? Ladder, ladder, steps. Yes. Question. Uh, to use the microphone.
The class is wonderful. Um, so you were saying that the family ashram they mean well, but many times because this is my idea that you're trying to explain, that because there's other people involved, it can be a little overwhelming. So they're agitated or distracted. So that can affect their karma because they're responsible for maybe children or husbands or wives or whatever, even pets. So, but they can be pure in that situation. You think they can absolutely be pure?
Well, that's example that Krishna is giving. It's not, the whole principle is that there's a system that is given to us human beings. Krishna
Mhm.
explains that. The Bhagavad Gita is very beautiful. Everything is there. So Krishna says to Arjuna that he has established a system for the world, and we just have to accept it. And if we accept it, everything that we desire to be happy in this world will be provided. And at the same time, we'll elevate ourselves to become free from the cycle of birth and death. Both things will be achieved. Both things will be achieved by taking Krishna's process. And the process that he said is a system of yajna, the system of sacrifice. And it's an universal structure for being able to perform the system of yajna. So the whole guidelines for the system of yajna is this whole codes of dharma, of religious. So we follow, we get the result. We become happy and we elevate ourselves to Krishna consciousness. We don't follow either by ignorance or by neglect, then we have to experience all kinds of miseries in this life. And the miseries in itself is designed by Krishna to help us come to our senses and then being able to understand what we have to do.
Um, when I ask questions, I many times, let's say 99% of the time, I want to clarify for the masses. It may not at all be that I'm not understanding, but what about the example of the individuals that are neither of those? They have all the knowledge, so it's not ignorance and it's not neglect, but their education or their natural intelligence causes them to always be in resistance, or let's say they have the two initiations but there's a special prayer or whatever. So what does Krishna say about that when you aren't ignorant by nature or because you have the knowledge, you've read the books, and then you're not really resisting, you just you're not really neglecting, you're just choosing to kind of be rebellious or have some resistance. So would that be worse than the person that's totally ignorant?
Krishna is very kind. And
Hmm.
he shows that, he tells Arjuna, even if my devotee does the most abominable thing, he still should be considered saintly if there's an if there. If the person is still, or if the devotee is still um, committed to the process. So, you know, Krishna is not the type of, this is, you know, this is what the saintly persons have revealed to us. And this is what we learn, in the scriptures, listening to Krishna's character, this whole thing of listening to Krishna's pastimes as experienced by personalities such as Narada Muni. Just tell us about Krishna's quality of um, kindness, of love, of um, embracing and non-judgmental type. Um, so Krishna is very kind. So even if we naturally, whatever struggles we have to go through, everybody have to go to struggles. You know, Krishna won't abandon us. Once we actually turn towards Krishna, then he won't abandon us. It's just a matter of time. He will help us through exposing, in one sense, or helping us realize what are we doing that are making this type of obstacles, this type of rebellions. What is the cause of all that, which in general have to do with our selfish desires. So Krishna help us purify that. So it's a matter of time, and then we as devotees, if we start to mature a little bit, we start to see things like that. So we also be very supportive and empathic to other people who are going through different things. But you see, do you have a question, Krishnarchan?
So the example that's been set here by Krishna, you were pointing out, actually covers all three categories of persons that you were describing, beginning with those that are following the Vedas. um, so, since it's a case of knowledge being very important as part of the elevation process, from the lowest level you were describing, at least for those still within the Vedic system. Uh, for persons that are falling completely outside of the Vedic system, uh, the exposure to knowledge on a societal level, because Krishna is functioning sort of on a broader societal level as a monarch. So, for persons who are outside the Vedic system, they would be exposed to the ruler of a particular country, place, to indicate um, what goals are there, or what um, path they should be following, according to the goals that are set by the laws that may be outside even of Krishna's laws, because it's not within the Vedic system. So it seems quite a difficult task to actually bring about that kind of revolution, um, sort of in the higher rulership level, that would actually then dictate or set goals that are more in line with at least the Vedas, to actually move a whole society forward towards knowledge and God realization or Krishna consciousness. So I'm just bringing that point because I'm thinking, what a huge disconnect there may be there. And I know that the Krishna consciousness movement there is that desire to bring revolution in thinking. I mean, that's the expression Srila Prabhupada uses, I think, revolution in the lives of impious persons. So I'm just bringing it to you.
Yeah, you know, in previous times when the Vanashram system was in place, then everything was very much supported. The majority, there was just these very clear divisions, and the majority was Sukritinas, with people who are following the Vedas, the laws. That was the establishment. The Varnashram was the social system. And then those who are opposed to Vanashram, the Duskritinas, they were just simply demoniac type of people. And lower among people is people with, they were there of demoniac type of propensities. And so it's explained that during Satya Yuga is mostly, they were not demons, they were in two different planets or things like that. In Tetra Yuga, now the demons were, in the same space and the devotees, but 25 demons, 75 devotees. So in Dwarpa Yuga is 50-50, and in Kali Yuga is 75 demons, 25, pious. So, and with degradation that actually increases, more like that. So the question is now in Kali Yuga, as you ask, So in Kali Yuga, it is, the first thing is because you don't have a structure that supports religiosity. Right now is what Krishna explains, that because it's a society that is ruled by demons, then religiosity, what is religiosity is seen as irreligious, and what is religious is seen as religious. Irreligious is seen as religious. So, so everything is difficult, upside down. So what to do? Well, the process that Krishna has given is the most powerful process for Kali Yuga, which is Sankirtan Yagya. Because other Yagyas are not recommended in this age. But the Sankirtan Yagya has that very, very power of being, is so powerful that it can purify the whole environment and the consciousness of people who are much influenced by demoniac type of propensities. So, yes, the chanting, the two things, the holy name and the Bhagavatam. So those two things and the propagation of these two things is it will bring a change. So it's not easy, and some of the challenges that we find is that we're in the process of being engaged in a Sankirtan Yagya. We're a Sankirtan mission, but at the same time, we have to establish an example of an organization. An organization have to have this structure and have to have this application of a social structure, which is Vanashram. So part of the purposes of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, Prabhupada said, is to establish Vanashram, an example, a functional example of an ashram, in which people of different natures are being able to be engaged. So, you create a system that is supported by this, that can support the sakamas, the gyanis, or sakama bhakti, jnana bhakti, and then, this pradhana, you know, um, pradhana, whatever bhakti, buddhi bhakti, yes, buddha bhakti. So, and also the pure, the nishkam bhakti, the ananya bhaktas. So all these could be supported once you establish, a whole frame or structure. So we have that task, and it's not easy, but it has to be done. And it's part of the things that are being worked out. I want to stop here. We can talk, after, because it's 8:44. But we can talk offline. Yes. Thank you so much. Grantara Bhagavatam ki jai.